Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
What's up, everybody, and welcome in to the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo. It's good to see a lot of the Power Hour crew checking in nice and early with the kind words today. As always, we're streaming live across the JAKIB Sports Network. We're streaming live across Bill Colarulo's social media. And we're going to be joined later on in the show, like we are every Wednesday, by the one and only Kayla Santiago, who does a great job covering the Sixers and the Eagles. So we're going to talk to Kayla about both of those sports teams today. And I want to dive into what Craig Carton from FS1 had to say about this Eagles team. And I also want to talk about the defense, because we spent a lot of time this week talking about the offense. Yesterday, I went over all my rankings for Jalen Hurts in the NFC and the quarterbacks. Made a lot of noise on Twitter. I posted my rankings on Twitter, and that video was going crazy. A lot of people agree with me. A lot of people telling me I'm a clown. As long as I don't get compared to Chris Sims, I'm okay with it. I can take the heat, but I will stand by my list of quarterbacks and where I rank Jalen Hurts in the NFC. And you could see that video. If you haven't seen it yet, you could see that video. It's up on my X or my Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And if you're here on TikTok, it's also on my TikTok as well. But let's get a little roll call in the chat from the Power Hour crew. Tessie77, nice and early, checking in. Good morning to you. Fanny Eagles fan girl, good morning. Bry Guy, flexing and stepping, sacked. Xavier Spencer, Bill Spadaro in the house. Chuck Hutton, Brian Davis, Soul Vane, Bridget Tobin, prettiest girl in the chat. Who else we got? WCBJJ77, Soul Vane, MC, Wine Niners Wine, as always. Jason 18, David Laprati, and we're here on TikTok as well. Give me a little roll call on TikTok. This is the Philly Sports Power Hour for those of you who haven't been here before. And again, I'm not a creeper on Bridget Tobin. That's my fiance, so I could say she's the prettiest girl in the chat. And I know I may be biased, but I'm not wrong. Steve Ike in the house. Ken S. checking in as well. I see M. John C. on TikTok. So a good show today. Kayla Santiago will be joining live around 10:20. But first, I want to address FS1's Craig Carton. So he comes on yesterday and makes this statement, which says he knows the real reason for the Eagles' collapse last season. It was a problem that would splinter any group of men. It's a real significant problem, and it cannot be fixed. And I will tell you that I'm not going to say anything more than that, but it will be interesting to see if a high-profile player will be with them next season. So first of all, he tells us nothing, okay? Gives us absolutely nothing. But I had a few people messaging me on Instagram saying, hey, did you see this Craig Carton statement about what happened with the Eagles? So I reached out to some people inside the Eagles organization, and I actually screenshot what Craig Carton said, and I sent it to them, and I said, is this dude just making stuff up? And the response I got back was, yes, 100% made up. That's what I thought, and it's been confirmed. So I hate that I'm even giving Craig Carton time on this show, because he got exactly what he wanted with all the clicks and all the people talking about him. But from what I was told by people with knowledge inside the Eagles organization, this was completely made up. And this morning on 97.5 The Fanatic, Adam Schefter said the same thing, that the people he spoke to inside the Eagles organization said it was complete SHIT. So that's my statement on Craig Carton. Made it up. Doesn't seem to be any accuracy to that report. So moving on. I know some people had asked me about it on Instagram and TikTok too. So completely made up. But yesterday we spent a lot of time talking about the offense, about Jalen Hurts. And we really didn't get into some other things I want to see them do on offense, and we can do that real quickly, but then I want to jump over to the defense. But what I want to see them do on offense is they need to bring in an upgrade at the wide receiver 3 position. We were asking for that last offseason when we knew they were going to roll it back with Quez Watkins. They brought in a little bit of competition, I guess, if you want to call it competition, with Olamide Zaccheaus, who I like. I liked OZ, but not as your wide receiver 3. Maybe for some depth, your 4th receiver. He's going to make a play every once in a while. But both Quez Watkins and Olamide Zaccheaus are free agents going into this offseason, and they have to upgrade the wide receiver 3. They realized it midway through the season, and that's why they went out and brought in an aging Julio Jones. But Julio Jones, he didn't have much left. I know he made a couple of plays, but they have to upgrade that. So you look at, well, who's available that maybe makes sense this coming free agency period. They're not going to break the bank. They have far too many needs on the defensive side of the ball, which we'll talk about in a second. So I'd be shocked if they could get a guy like a Calvin Ridley. I mean, Calvin Ridley for me would be the pipe dream. We know he's got a history with these guys on the offense. He went to Alabama. The Eagles obviously liked him because they tried to get him before he was suspended. The only reason A.J. Brown's here is because the Eagles were about to pull the trigger on a trade for Calvin Ridley, and then they were told he's going to be suspended. That deal falls apart, and Jacksonville ends up getting him after the suspension. So they had interest in him. They did like him, but I just think he's going to probably want too much money to come here. So he's probably not an option. But they need a slot receiver. So I started looking at who could fit that mold of a slot receiver. And there's a guy who's been a headache for this team over the years, and that's Curtis Samuel from the Washington Commanders. I don't know what Curtis Samuel would want in free agency, but he could look nice in the slot with Devontae and A.J. Brown. I know people have thrown out Michael Pittman. Some people would be interested in him. I think he may want just as much money as a Calvin Ridley. I'm not sure you're going to be able to get a Michael Pittman. Then you got Gabe Davis is another one. Tyler Boyd is another one. I know people are talking about Mooney from Chicago. They just need to upgrade that wide receiver 3, but I don't want to see them break the bank. There's far too many other needs on the defensive side of the ball. But sticking to the offense, I also think they need a better backup tight end. As good as Dallas Goedert is, number one, he hasn't been able to stay healthy the last 2 seasons for 17 games. And behind him, you really don't have anything. Jack Stoll, great run blocker, isn't good in the receiving game. Grant Calcaterra, better in the receiving game, can't run block. I want to see this team able to run 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field that are both dual threats, because that's what makes Goddard so damn good. Is he's a really good run blocker, but he's also good in the passing game. I want a second tight end that has that same skill set. You don't have to break the bank. They don't have to be as good as Goddard, but maybe a guy like a Noah Fant, Dalton Schultz, Hunter Henry. If you don't have to break the bank for those guys, I'd like to see that on offense as well. And then obviously they need a running back. Do they go with Kenny Gainwell and some unknown? Or do they bring in somebody? I'd love to see them sign DeAndre Swift. I just don't know if it's going to happen. And then I see people in the chat talking about Kelsey, and that's the other question mark. Does he retire? I think if Kelsey retires, I'm okay rolling with Cam Jurgens at center. This is why you drafted him. You have to have faith in these draft picks. You drafted Cam Jurgens to take over for Jason Kelsey. You drafted Tyler Steen to step in at right guard. So we got to let these young guys play. You have to. It's the only way to win in the NFL is you have to be able to develop young talent. You can't have free agents at every position. You can't just go out and overpay for every position. So that's what they need to do on offense. But I'm not as concerned about the offense. We've talked about this in the past. I think the offense is going to be fine. With Kellen Moore, you still have Jalen Hurts, who you know I'm high on. I think they're going to be fine on offense. It's the defense that Howie Roseman has his work cut out for him in less than a month when free agency hits. And Reuben Frank over at NBC Sports Philly put out an interesting stat yesterday. The last 7 times the Philadelphia Eagles defense has ranked in the top 8 for points allowed, they've made the NFC Championship game. How crazy is that? The last 7 times they've ranked top 8 in points against, they've gone to an NFC Championship. And to refresh your memory, last season, they were 30th in the league in points against. But you look at the last 8 times it's happened, last 7 times it's happened. 2001, number 2 in points against. 2002, number 2 in points against. 2003, number 7 in points against. And 2004, number 2 in points against. They went to the NFC Championship 4 straight years. And then in 2008, when they went to the NFC Championship against the Arizona Cardinals, number 4 in points against. 2017, when they win the damn Super Bowl, number 4 in points against. And then in 2022, number 7 in points against. In fact, you have to go all the way back to 2000, 24 years ago, to see a time where the Eagles had a defense in the top 8 for defensive points allowed where they didn't make the NFC Championship game. So this is key. They've never been to an NFC Championship with a defense outside of the top 10 in points against. I mean, if those stats don't tell you right now what the Eagles need to do this offseason, you have to build your defense back. Priority number 1, building that defense back. And it's not going to be easy because they are going to lose a lot of pieces. Now, all the pieces they're going to lose, I'm okay with. I don't care if they don't re-sign any of their free agents on the defensive side of the football. Shaq Leonard, I don't need you to re-sign him. Zach Cunningham, if you want to re-sign him for depth, but don't sell me on the fact that he's going to be our starter at linebacker. Sean Bradley, Nick Morrow, Justin Evans. I'm okay if they don't sign any of them. And then the other 2 are veterans, Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox. Brandon Graham, I know, wants to come back. He's not going to give you much. If you can get him for the veteran minimum just to add some depth, sure, bring him back. But I'm okay in letting Fletcher Cox retire if he wants too much money. This is, again, trust your draft picks. You drafted Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Marlon Tuipulotu. You got to let your young guys play. It's the only way they're going to be good. You can't keep overpaying for positions. So I'm okay with letting every single free agent on the defensive side of the football go. But then what does that mean for this Eagles defense? Well, I think they'll be okay at D tackle. I think they will. I know we have our questions about Jordan Davis, but they still have Jalen Carter. They still have Milton Williams, who's eligible. Milton Williams will be eligible for a new contract this year. Now, whether or not they give him one, I think they should, but we'll see if they give him one. Let's see, where do I have my people? Yeah, Milton Williams, he'll be a free agent in 2025, but remember how it works in the NFL. You have to play 3 full years. If you're a draft pick, you have to play 3 full years before you're eligible for a new contract. So this year, 3 notable guys who are eligible for contracts. Everybody knows Devontae Smith, but Landon Dickerson and Milton Williams. And the difference with Landon and Milton Williams, they don't have a 5th-year option because they weren't first-round draft picks. With Devontae Smith, you still have that in your back pocket. You're going to exercise that 5th-year option, and it gives you some more time to negotiate. I know they want to get a deal done. But with Landon Dickerson and Milton Williams, you got to probably get a deal done now because you don't have that 5th-year option with them. But I'm okay at D-tackle. I think they're fine at D-tackle with who they have. On the edge, big question marks because we don't know, is Haason Reddick coming back? Even if Reddick comes back, you need depth. If Reddick doesn't come back and you trade him, you need a star. And then obviously linebacker. I posted a video this morning on all my social platforms about linebacker. They need an inside linebacker. And I know people are talking about the draft. I know people are talking about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I want to see them draft somebody, but that's not enough. You can't go into this season with Nakobe Dean, who's a big question mark, Ben Van Sumeren, huge question mark, and then a rookie that you draft. Even if you took the rookie in the first round, which they're not going to do, even if you took a rookie linebacker in the first round, they'd be a question mark going into the season. There's no guarantee that their game's going to translate to the NFL level to start the 2024 season. So I need to see Howie Roseman change his philosophy and make a splash in free agency at inside linebacker. I still want them to draft somebody. Don't get me wrong. Still draft somebody. Still try to develop somebody. But this defense needs a playmaker at the linebacker position that we know to start the season, our linebacker position is fine. You got Frankie Lavu from Carolina, Patrick Queen from Baltimore, Jordan Brooks from Seattle. There's some linebackers available. I want to see them make a splash. And I think we need to do the same thing at safety. Because as promising as Sidney Brown was, we don't know when he's going to be healthy. Reed Blankenship, up and down, hasn't been able to stay healthy for 17 games. So I want to see them make a splash there as well because we've talked about this on the show. Kevin Byard, his cap hit skyrockets this year. Goes from $1 million to $14 million. They're not going to pay him that. They may renegotiate it and Byard's still here. But if not, he's gone. So I want to see playmakers at the safety position and the linebacker position. And I know a lot of people want cornerbacks. For me, that's third on the list. I want linebacker. I want safety. I'd actually be okay with the young corners they have. And with Isaiah Rodgers coming back from the suspension list, Zach McPherson coming back from IR, I'd actually be okay with the corners more than I am with the linebackers and the safety position. So I want to continue our Eagles talk with Kayla Santiago, and we'll also jump into a little Sixers as well, because they're going to be back from the All-Star break tomorrow night. And don't forget about our Flyers. Fly Guys back in action tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks. So hopefully we'll do some hockey talk tomorrow on the show. But we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we will be joined like we are every Wednesday by the one and only Kayla Santiago. Stay tuned.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back into the Philly Sports Power Hour with Bill Colarulo. I appreciate the Power Hour crew, as always, spending this hour with us right here on JAKIB Sports, as well as all my social platforms. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that follow, subscribe button, wherever you're watching. Before the break, we were talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. I told you that FS1's Craig Carton's report was complete BS, confirmed from people inside the Eagles. BS report, as we all expected. We also were talking a little bit about that defense and what the Eagles need to do to get that defense back to being a top 10 defense. But I now want to bring in Kayla Santiago to the show. What's up, Kayla? How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. The Sixers are coming back from the All-Star break. The Fly Guys are back in action tonight. Free agency's about to start. There's a lot to talk about. Phillies are in spring training. So it's fun to be a sports fan right now because you could really look at all 4 sports teams, which is cool. But let's start with the Sixers because All-Star break. First of all, what'd you think of the All-Star game? You a fan of the All-Star game?
No, I'm not. And I never am. And I think the only sport that the All-Star game is still decent is baseball, the MLB at this point, because it's just a complete joke. They go out there, they play no defense. I also get it, though, because you don't want anybody to get injured at this point of the season, but it's just a free-for-all out there. Honestly, I like the events they put on better. I love the 3-point contest they brought in with Sabrina Ionescu from New York Liberty.
That was cool.
And Steph Curry, of course. I love that. Sabrina Ionescu has been one of my favorite players since she played in college. But even like the dunk contest right now, as much as I love my NBA G Leaguers and Mac McClung was, on the Blue Coats last year with their Sixers Union, everything this year with the Magic. You look at just everybody in there. Jacob Toppin was in it, Obi Toppin's younger brother. It's like, okay, well, the dunk contest now, you're really starting to lose a little bit of that juice because you used to have guys like Aaron Gordon and Blake Griffin when they were in their prime, and now you really don't. So I think it's more of what they're trying to do kind of outside of the main events when we're so used to seeing the main events. I don't know. I put it on, but my eyes aren't glued to the TV. I'm kind of walking around, doing laundry, doing the things that I need to while the All-Star game is on because Honestly, I like watching, the first quarter, and then I can pretty much do whatever I need to do for the rest of the night.
Yeah, and flexing and stepping in the chat, 218 points is insane. I mean, I know they usually don't play defense, but that was just outrageous.
Insane.
But you mentioned Ionescu. I thought they should have given her and Steph a second round. I mean, it was 29-26.
Oh, yeah.
She was doing it. She did it from the NBA three-point line. She could shoot, man.
That was
pretty cool.
She's incredible, and I absolutely love it. And it's crazy. I love that she came on and said, no, I'm going to shoot from the NBA three-point line, because also she had as much as Dame, who, won the whole thing in terms of just the NBA three-point contest. So I really like it. I hope next year they bring in Caitlin Clark, also have Sabrina, and then maybe have somebody else from the NBA. I think it's something super cool. I love what she was able to do in Oregon. I love the New York Liberty, what she's been able to do with them too. And I just think, she's got those ties in with the Bryant family and Kobe as well. Like, she's done a lot, I think, for the game of basketball on the women's side. And to see her go toe-to-toe with the best shooter of all time, it was just absolutely fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. All right, I need your reporting hat now. I don't know. I know you're tied in. You're tied into this Sixers organization. What's going on with Joel? Got any updates?
No, and honestly, to me, it's more scary than not having any updates, because I feel like if they said, okay, well, the surgery went well, he's going to be in recovery for yada, 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 he has a chance to come back. There's not even like a glimpse of hope right now from reports that he's coming back. And that could either be a good or a bad thing. It could be a good thing because, the recovery might be going well. It might be going okay. And at that point, they might be saying, well, we don't want to rush him back, and we don't want to tell people a certain date, but we do expect him to come back towards the end of the season during playoffs. Or it could be bad, and they could just be kind of gatekeeping all the information like they've kind of been doing about this injury in general, and being like, we're going to shut him down for the rest of the year. So right now, it's really interesting. I think we're kind of just in this gray area where we don't really know what's going on with Joel Embiid. And the other thing, too, even if he does come back, and as much as I want Joel back for the playoffs, you look at it and you say, he's got to get conditioned once again. He's got to be up to playing in the playoffs once again. This is not the regular season anymore. Like, you have to be conditioned, and I think he needs a little bit more games in the regular season to come back. Also, the Sixers need to win. They can't keep losing, because if they go even more and more down in the seeding, it's not going to be great to have to maybe play a 1 seed in the playoffs. Like, you don't want that either. So you look at it right now, I honestly think the organization is just keeping things very, very quiet, kind of like the Eagles we thought did with Jalen Hurts during the season when that knee was a little bit banged up. Now, it's more serious for Joel than it was for Jalen, it seems. But at the same time, I think there's a lot going on that we just don't know. And I wouldn't be surprised if they come out and say that he's shut down for the season. Of course, I don't want that to happen, but just the thought process of him being able to get ready for the playoffs and play up to par coming off a big surgery, it's crazy to think that could actually happen.
All right, well, let's think positively here. Let's assume Joel does come back at some point this season to get ready for the playoffs. What do you want to see from this Sixers team now that they're going to be back from the break tomorrow night? What do you need to see from them after the All-Star break?
I need to see them win games. I really love the addition of Buddy Hield, and he's had some good performances. But with or without Joel Embiid, you need to figure out ways to win. You need to figure out ways to put numbers up on the board, because you look at it right now and you say, okay, well, the Sixers, they just can't keep falling. You don't want to get into a play-in tournament situation at all, especially if you don't have Joel Embiid. And if you look at on top of it as well, if you look at Tyrese Maxey and Buddy Hield, they're not going to get to the 1 or 2 seed, but I think you at least need to get in that top 5 range when you go into the playoffs, especially if Joel is coming back. Because if not, you're putting him in a really, really tough situation, coming back off an injury and having to play one of the highest opponents in the conference.
So the one positive, I guess, things that Sixers fans can take, though, because even if the Sixers don't make a playoff run, and even if Embiid doesn't come back 100% healthy, the dumpster fire that's going on with Doc Rivers and the Milwaukee Bucks, what the hell is going on in Milwaukee, Kayla?
I love it, and I don't want to wish on anybody's downfall, but for one, I never understood why they fired their head coach. They were doing well. They were winning games. I understand that they were not happy about the in-season tournament outcome, but come on, he was able to really get them winning games, a winning season. And then you go to a coach who literally is shown to choke games, to not be able to win in the tight matchups at all. And that's kind of what you're seeing with the Milwaukee Bucks. Also, Pat Bev talking about Doc Rivers after JJ Redick kind of called him out, which was absolutely crazy. I have a lot of respect for JJ Redick as a player, as a commentator. So JJ Reddick calls Doc out, and Pat Bev says, well, he started your career. No, JJ Reddick's just being honest. This is consistently what Doc Rivers has done. And I knew this was going to happen. I mean, you look at it and you say, okay, you're bringing a coach into a team with a lot of personalities. You add Pat Bev to that mix, and you look at Damian Lillard and Giannis and Doc Rivers. In what world did you think that was going to work? I don't know. Apparently the Bucks did. I think they made a huge mistake. I've been saying that since they made the switch. I don't really understand it. Doc's not a coach that can win, and we've already seen that.
Yeah, I was shocked too. I mean, something must have been going on for the Milwaukee Bucks to fire their coach, because they didn't have a bad record. It was a very short time. This was his first season as coach, right? So
yeah, and it's crazy because, like, I was expecting kind of a story of something happening in the organization if he did something wrong, but still nothing's dropped yet. So that's also concerning of, was it just an issue with Giannis and the coach, or Dame and the coach? Like, there's been no really dialogue or narrative. They've almost forgotten about it.
And check out Jason Lombardi. I appreciate the kind words about Kayla, but the best part of this show, I thought that was me. No, I got no ego here. Kayla does a great job. We do appreciate you making time to spend with us here on the Power Hour, Kayla. Well, let's jump over to the Eagles, because the Sixers are not only what Kayla knows well, she also does a great job with the Philadelphia Eagles. So we're a month away from free agency, less than a month away from free agency. And some people in this city have been talking about the Super Bowl window has closed on this Philadelphia Eagles team. I don't feel that way. But how do you feel? Do you think the Super Bowl window has closed for the Philadelphia Eagles?
No, I don't think so. But I'm also not going into this upcoming season with expectations like I did last year. You know, last year, I just want to say it's really, really hard for a team to get to back-to-back Super Bowls. Not everybody is the Kansas City Chiefs. Not everybody is Pat Mahomes, right? So you look at the Eagles team, I wasn't necessarily expecting them to go to the Super Bowl and win last year, but I was definitely expecting them to have a much better season than they did, especially there at the end. I go into this upcoming season with not a lot of expectations. You got two new coordinators. Nick Sirianni, to me, he's kind of on the hot seat this year. You look at it and you say, okay, well, was it the coordinator's fault last year, or was it Nick Sirianni's fault? Because if they have a bad year again, I think then you look at the head coach. So do I think it's closed? No. Am I saying that they're going to win the Super Bowl next year and they're going to get there? Absolutely not. I think that it might take some time. I wouldn't be surprised if they can win a little bit in the playoffs. I think they're going to have a better finish than they did a year ago. But my expectations for this season are low, especially what happened after last year.
Yeah, maybe that's a good thing that people aren't going to have the crazy expectations, because it seems almost the years we make our runs. Look, 2022, I thought they were going to be a good team, but I don't think anybody expected them to be as good as they were in 2022. Same thing in 2017. I don't think anyone expected them to be that dominant in 2017. There's actually a funny clip when you look at these mic'd ups. I just remember I got the video that they put out after the season when they won, where you could see the whole season. And one of the mic'd ups, like 6 games in, Chris Long says to somebody on the sidelines, like, yo, are we really this good? And they're like, yeah, we're really this good.
Right? Yeah,
because nobody expected them to be that dominant. So, hey, maybe expectations being low is a good thing. But with free agency less than a month away, what do you need to see Howie Roseman and the Eagles do to feel better about this team going forward?
There's so many pieces, and we talked about this a few weeks ago. I like the pickups that they've made a little bit already towards this offseason. I still think you need to look at your linebackers and just that core in general and get a little bit more experience there if they can. I think that could be a huge thing that they can hit on. But once again, Howie Roseman, I know he just got a good fill of people, but I also know that that's not his number one choice. What I think, though, is the one thing that I would like to see is a linebacker, because I feel like there's, good secondary players coming in this year's draft. I also think that Howie Roseman does not like to draft linebackers. So when you look at it, you say, okay, maybe that's a piece you want to get. But then again, your secondary is already so young. So when you look at it right now, do you want to wait to the draft to get a good safety or get a good corner? Because you already have guys that are so young and really only have 1 year of experience besides James Bradbury and Darius Slay back there. So I think defense is definitely my main focus, though, when you look at it, because when you looked at the Super Bowl, I mean, linebackers were making plays, defenders were making plays, and yeah, they had two really good offensive quarterbacks and good offense on both sides. But when you look at it, I think the defense needs help. I think the offense will be okay. I'm excited to see really what Nick Sirianni is going to do with the offense this year, really seeing if it was Brian Johnson's fault for what they did a season ago. I think the adjustment for the offensive side of the ball is going to be coaching. Defense, though, you just need guys. You need more experience back there, especially when you go past that line. Then you go to the linebackers, then you go to the secondary. I mean, it's still a mess to me, and I think that they need a lot of help back there. And I hope Howie Roseman makes a few big moves.
Yeah, you're spot on because Patrick Mahomes obviously is the GOAT, but you look at that Kansas City Chiefs team this year, and they won the Super Bowl, yes, because of Mahomes, but mainly because of their defense. Their defense was so good all season, and they held the San Francisco 49ers, who have Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, and even Brock Purdy. I put him on the list of being a good offensive player. They held them to 19 offensive points. So it was the defense that really carried that Chiefs team. So you're spot on with that. Now, let's talk about the veterans real quick, because on the defensive side of the football, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, you look at the offensive side of the football, Jason Kelce. We love all three of those guys. They're legends in this city. They will be forever. What do you want to see them do with those three veterans?
So I'm going to say this. I was able to talk to Brandon Graham actually at a Blue Coats game because he was there.
I saw that. Great interview.
League team. Thank you. And the one thing that stuck out to me is that he wants to play so bad. He wants to play. And I know that he said that at the end of the season for the Eagles, and he would love to come back to Philadelphia. But I think BG really thinks that he has another year left in him and another year to play good football left in him. So if I had to pick between the three, to me, I think you have to let Fletch go. And I really love Fletcher Cox and what he's been able to do. And I think a lot of these guys, they're going to cost some money to bring back either way. I think that they could go a little bit more less to help, the cap and bring more people in. But when you look at it right now, to me, I just think Fletcher Cox is somebody that is a really good rotational player on the line. Clearly his prime is a little bit overdue right now. And I think the Eagles, they have a good line. You look at Jordan Davis right now. You look at Jalen Carter. They have guys that are going to step up and kind of be the new guys for this team. I'm not saying they're going to play and be Fletcher Cox, but I think that they have enough in the tank on that line to be able to say, okay, well, Fletcher Cox, we can see you later. To me, and I said this last time, Jason Kelce, if he wants to come back, I think he's absolutely a guy you have to bring back. And I go back to the comment that Joe Buck said on the broadcast after the playoff. He wants to leave the NFL. It's because he wants to leave. It's because he wants more time with his family. This guy is still playing at a high rate in his career, a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. So when you look at it, I think Jason Kelce back. And I wouldn't be mad if they brought BG back, but I also don't want to pass up on other guys. I think on the edge there, that could really help them. But I think at the same time, if there's other guys that you can get and you need to say goodbye to him, I wouldn't be super upset if they do, as much as I love BG. So I think Jason Kelce in that trio is the guy that you have to keep if he wants to come back. And defensively, I wouldn't be surprised if they keep BG. I know he wants to come back. He brings that experience, kind of that veteran leadership as well.
Yeah, and for me, and you've heard me say this before about Jason Kelce, but for all three of those guys, I love them all. But I would be okay with the Eagles saying goodbye to all three. I think this team needs to get younger. I think they need to put that money that these guys would cost into other resources. I mean, you look at Fletcher Cox last year, his cap hit was actually the lowest of all three. Mm-hmm. He had a $5.7 million cap hit. BG had a $10 million cap hit. Jason Kelce was over $10 million. I just would like to see them take that money and put it elsewhere. And you're right. You look at those three players, Kelce's still playing at an all-pro level, literally. But I just think it's a luxury they don't have to have a highest-paid center in the league. But you look at Fletcher Cox, he did play really well last year at the D-tackle position, but you invested a lot of draft capital into that D-tackle position. I think it's time that you go younger at that position. And Twiz makes a great point right here. This is what I was about to say. Clint Hurt. Clint Hurt may be one of the most important hires that the Eagles made this season. In addition to Vic Fangio, Clint Hurt coaching up that D-line with these young guys, Davis, Carter, Marlon Tuipulotu, and Milton Williams. So I agree with you other than Jason Kelce. I think it's time we say goodbye to Kelce, let him enjoy retirement, which I think he's going to do. What do you think? What's your gut telling you? You think he's coming back?
So watching the documentary, the one thing that stuck out to me is his wife said, I just want him to be able to play on the floor with the kids and not be in excruciating pain. So to me, if that comes to that limit right there, I know that he loves the game, but the way that he was emotional after the playoff contest, and I know that he wants to come back, but to me at this point, I think you look at it, and honestly, I actually just listened to an interview with him and Shaq that was really, really interesting. And Shaq said, you have it all. You're going to be a Hall of Famer. You're going to be this. You're going to be that. What I didn't do in my retirement was really cherish the people in my life and cherish my family. And I think Jason does that, but I think Shaq Moore is putting it to the way of you still have time where your body's okay, where your mind's okay. You're not all concussed up. You're not completely damaged in that lower back. Yeah, you're going to be sore some days, but like you're going to be okay. You don't want to get to a point where you're pushing your body too much and you're not, and you have an awful injury or something like that. So I think that he does retire. I think at this point, he kind of knows that, if he comes back, he's going to request that money. And to me, I don't think he comes back unless he can be with the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think he comes back to play for another team for his career. I just don't see it. So if I'm going to be honest, I do think that it's sad, but it might be all said and done for Jason Kelce. But, hats off to him. He's had a fantastic career. He has other priorities right now. He's got a whole family. He wants to stay healthy for that. And this is a brutal game. Football is a brutal game. To have a career like Jason Kelce, it's awesome because you look at, the average career for an NFL player. When you look at the averages of it, average career is 3 years. And I know that's crazy to think about because we think of the Pat Mahomes and Tom Brady's and guys like that. But when you look at all the players in the league, 3 years is the average career. So Jason Kelce, what he's been able to do at his position, it's spectacular.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on when you said if he did come back, it's only going to be with the Philadelphia Eagles. I see people in the chat. I've seen people on social media saying, oh, well, he may go to Kansas City and play 1 year with his brother.
No.
That's not happening. Kansas City they have Creed Humphrey, who is an all-pro, Pro Bowl center. They're not going to bring in Jason Kelce. That just doesn't make any sense. Kelce will either retire or be back, but I think everything's pointing to he's going to retire. We know he spoke to Fox. He spoke to Amazon Prime. He spoke to ESPN. He's referring to the Eagles in third person for the first time. I've never heard him say they, them, and refer to them in third person. So I think he's probably going to retire. He's earned it. I will love him. He will be a legend in this town forever, but I'm okay with Cam Jurgens, and let's go with the young guys. But I want to talk about Jalen Hurts because I did a list on Twitter a couple days ago of my top quarterbacks in the NFC. I ranked them 1 through 16. Getting all types of buzz on Twitter. Some people love my list. Other people are calling me a clown, telling me I'm on drugs, telling me that way to bring mental health awareness to the limelight. People are crazy on Twitter. But
yeah, they are.
I want to hear from you. Where do you think Jalen Hurts ranks right now in the NFC? I'm not talking about the NFL, so we don't have to worry about Mahomes and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and even Justin Herbert. Only talking about the NFC. Where do you put Jalen?
So, it's crazy because when you look at the NFL, especially the AFC, you say, okay, the quarterbacks drive their teams. I mean, you just listed fantastic quarterbacks in the AFC. For the NFC, all these good quarterbacks have been driven by other forces. And I know Brock Purdy had a really good season, and at one point he was kind of listed as an MVP favorite. But who did he have right beside him? CMC. And to me, when you look at that, you say, okay, without Christian McCaffrey, this team is not even close to as good as they were this year. And, this is probably going to get a lot of flack too, but I do still have Jalen at number 1 in the NFC. And I know it's crazy after the season that he had, but I think this team, I know we're actually agreeing on something this time.
Yes,
last time it was a disagreement of Jason Kelce, but I look at it and I say, Jalen Hurts at this point of his career has done a lot, and we've seen what he's been able to do. Clearly last year just wasn't their year. Now, if you're talking about strict performances from a season ago, I don't have Jalen at number 1 because I just think last year he did not play well. But when you're looking at their careers so far and to this point right now, I think you have to put Jalen at number 1. I mean, you look at it and you say, okay, not only is this upcoming year going to be a test for Nick Sirianni, I also think it's going to be a test for Jalen Hurts because you go back to those Carson Wentz days where he was an MVP favorite in 2017, gets injured, and then in 2018 is injured again, doesn't really play that well. And then after that, it was like, okay, well, this Carson Wentz guy can go to another team, right? Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen with Jalen Hurts, but I think this is the year to say, okay, well, last year, was it coaching or was it you? Show this year that you have the weapons, that you have the ability, that you have the offense, you have new coaches. It might take some time with a new offensive coordinator, but at the same time, you look at it and you say, okay, well, Jalen Hurts, you also have something to prove this season too. So if you're basing it off just last year alone, no. But I think when you look at it right now in the last few seasons, yes, I think Jalen Hurts is the number one quarterback in the NFC. NFC people, not the NFL. Make sure you differentiate.
Exactly, and that was my point as well. And I had all people coming after me saying, Dak Prescott is better, and Matt Stafford and Jared Goff and all these
Cowboys fans in the chat. Come on now.
Cowboys haters. But, I mean, look, when we talk about last season, and I'm not absolving Hurts. I said this yesterday. Hurts needs to play better. He can't turn the ball over as much as he turned the ball over. But when you look at the yards after catch, and you see that in 2022, they were top 5 in the league in average yards after catch. And then last year, with really the same personnel, some would argue even better in terms of yards after catch because you added DeAndre Swift, they dropped to 25th in the league in average yards after catch. To me, that's play design and route concepts and game planning. And let's see now what Jalen Hurts does with a proven offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, a guy who's done it before. Brian Johnson never called plays. So I think that's a lot of what we saw last year. Not absolving Hurts entirely, but I think a lot of it was the coaching staff.
No, I agree with you. But once again, I don't think that you can just say like Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, well, they're in the clear for next year. I think both of them have a lot to prove because now you're finally bringing in some experience in the coordinator position. So is Nick Sirianni going to step up to the plate? Is he going to be the coach that we saw 2 years ago? Or is Nick Sirianni not that good of a head coach? This is the year I truly think that you're going to find out. Same with Jalen Hurts because you have offensive play callers that know what they're doing. And really no disrespect to Brian Johnson because I think he was put in kind of an unfair situation. He never did it before. He had a lot of talent, though, and it just really, really did not work. So I think that when you look at it right now, you say, okay, well, Jalen Hurts, now they've got experience in play calling. And if Jalen doesn't perform well this year, then you have the conversation of him not being the top quarterback in the NFC because I think both of them have a lot to prove. But once again, they have a whole year to prove it, in my opinion, after what they've been able to do the last few seasons.
I agree. So now we're talking about Jalen Hurts in the NFC. Let's just talk about teams in the NFC. The Eagles have a lot of work to do. Free agency, the draft. We'll see what happens with them. But right now, you look at the NFC, which team scares you the most going into 2024?
I don't know if scare is the proper word for me to be like, okay, well, these teams I'm really worried about. Teams, though, I think that are going to contend and be good. I still look at the 49ers. I still think that they just have a lot of talented players on both sides of the ball. And the thing about the 49ers that I like so much is that they really care about every position out there, including special teams. And you look at the other side, I think the Detroit Lions are also going to be a fun team to kind of look at. Obviously, watching the Eagles and covering the Eagles, we want them to go far. But at the same time, when you look at football from an objective standpoint, I like the Detroit Lions. I think they have a lot of fire in them. I love what they did last year, and I think they want that extra push. Also, the Packers, I think, are going to be kind of the unsung heroes of the conference a little bit. I really like how Jordan Love played last year, and I know that they could get a little bit more help. I'm not necessarily scared of the Packers, but I do think that they're going to be a fun team to watch next year, and I think they're going to be a team to look out for. I'm not scared of the Cowboys. I've never been scared of the Cowboys. And I'm not just saying that because we cover the Eagles. I'm saying that because as soon as the Cowboys get to the postseason, it is the same thing every year. You talk about people saying they're mad at Jalen Hurts. Where's the hate on Dak Prescott at this point? Because I'm not saying that they lose games because of Dak, but it's a constant repetition of them going to the playoffs and not being able to win. Did the Cowboys at some point, maybe not this year, but maybe the years down the line, make a change from Dak Prescott? Who really knows? So those are the few teams that I think that I'm looking out for this year. I would say the 49ers, the Lions, and I'm excited to see what the Packers can also do.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Good stuff, Kayla, as always. If you guys want more Kayla Santiago, make sure you're following her on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. She also does a great job covering the Blue Coats, as you heard her say earlier. And she joins us every Wednesday when she can. She's so busy. Sometimes she has to miss like she did last week, but we always appreciate when you make time for us, Kayla.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to next week. Hopefully some good news. Hopefully we see the Eagles do some shifting around or, the Sixers start winning some games. Maybe we'll get some Joel Embiid news. I feel like everything's up in the air. Phillies in spring training, Flyers playing as well. So excited to see how the Phils do in Clearwater. I always like to watch those games, and I'm always excited for baseball to be back. So a lot going on all at the same time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Same. Well, we appreciate you, Kayla. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too. Kayla Santiago joining the show. Always does a great job with the Eagles and the Sixers. So Kayla talked a little bit about the teams in the NFC that she thinks can compete next year. Mentioned the 49ers, mentioned the Cowboys, and did mention the Packers. For me, the Packers are the big X factor going into 2024. Because we talked about this when I did my Jalen Hurts quarterback rankings. And I said, look, I have him number one in the NFC, but the quarterback that I think could leapfrog him is Jordan Love. We just only have seen it for half a season because Jordan Love really started playing well around Thanksgiving last year. So I'm not ready to say, hey, Jordan Love is the best quarterback in the NFC. We have to see him do it for an entire 17-game season. But with good coaching, with Matt LaFleur, and a really good offensive coach and a lot of young players on the offensive side of the football, you look at the Packers, they're the team that's the X factor for me in the NFC. I think Kayla makes a good point about the Cowboys. Look, Cowboys will probably have a good regular season. Will the streak continue of no repeat winner in the NFC East in, 20-something years now? So you look at the NFC East, and if that trend continues and it's not going to be the Cowboys to win the NFC East, is there anybody that has confidence it's going to be the Giants or the Commanders this season? And I don't know who it is. I'm forgetting the name in the chat. Always wants me to give you a hail to the Commanders. Not happening. Not happening. But if that trend continues, you got to think it's the Eagles this year. And we talked about this yesterday when I went and looked at their schedule for next season. We don't know when they're going to play the teams, but we know who they're going to play. And James Jones, I know I just did it with the hail to the Commanders. But we know who they're going to play and we know where, other than the Brazil game. The schedule is a lot easier this year. So there's a lot of things for this Philadelphia Eagles team that have me feeling positive. Now, none of it will matter if Howie Roseman doesn't build the defense the way he needs to build this defense. But right now, I'm feeling more positive. And I know you're going to call me a cheerleader for this team, but there's a lot more to be positive about right now. They hired two really good coordinators in Fangio and Kellen Moore. They have a lot easier schedule this season than they did last year. You look at the trends of the Super Bowl loser getting back to the Super Bowl. Not likely for the San Francisco 49ers. You look at the trend of no repeat winners in the NFC East in over 20 years. That's also good for the Philadelphia Eagles. There's just a lot to be positive about with this Eagles team. I know we're not happy with the way it ended, but I don't think that we should be negative just to be negative. And I see Adam's X points in the chat talking about that Brazil game. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. Peter King saying it looks like it's going to be the Cleveland Browns. So we'll see if that's, in fact, the case when they announce it. I hope it is, not the Green Bay Packers. I'd rather see it be the Atlanta Falcons. When you look at the list and we went over it, it's probably either the Falcons, the Packers, the Steelers, or the Browns. So I would rather it be the Falcons, but looks like it may be the Browns. As long as it's not the Packers. I want the Packers at Lincoln Financial Field. So, but we'll keep breaking down this roster for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll do a little Flyers talk tomorrow as well, since they're back in action tonight. And we're going to be joined tomorrow, like we are every Thursday, by my man Mark Farzetta. So Farzy will be joining the show tomorrow. But like we end every Philly Sports Power Hour with a little Today in Sports History, well, this one we're going back to 1989. February 21st, 1989 was when Pete Rose was first questioned by Major League Baseball with regard to gambling. There were some reports that he had bet on baseball. So on February 21st, 1989, he has an informal meeting with then Commissioner Peter Oberoth and National League President Bart Giamatti. Pete Rose denies it. They do an investigation. Well, at that point, Pete Oberoth knew he was retiring and Bart Giamatti was going to take over as commissioner. So he says to Bart, listen, you could deal with this after I retire. So then come August 24th, 1989, after a detailed investigation, they put Pete Rose on the Major League Baseball ineligible list. Bart Giamatti announces it, and he's never got back. And the crazy thing was Bart Giamatti died of a heart attack 8 days after announcing that they were banning Pete Rose from Major League Baseball. So just an interesting thing, but it was today, February 21st in 1989, that he had his first informal questioning about what we now know was accurate. He was gambling. He said at that meeting, I gambled on football and basketball and horse racing, but I never gambled on baseball. Turned out that wasn't an accurate statement. But he does claim he never bet against his team. And the way he played, probably agree with him. I mean, he played hard. But, hey, you can't jeopardize the game, and can't do it. So I know there's debate in the chat whether or not Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame or not. And I see Brian Lippincott saying if he wasn't such a jerk, he probably would be. But, yeah, some of the things he says just makes people not like him. But you can't mess with the integrity of the game. We already have people talking about how things are fixed. So you can't bet on sports. You can't bet on your own teams. Just can't happen. But I appreciate everybody. I will see you tomorrow. Like I said, Mark Farzetta will be joining the show. Make sure you're following me on all social platforms. Like I tell you every week, engage with me. Get on X, give me a follow. Get on Instagram, give me a follow. Subscribe here on YouTube as well. And we'll be back here tomorrow, 10 o'clock. This was the Philly Sports Power Hour. I'm Bill Colarulo. And as always, go Birds.
Go for the polls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.